Hi, this is Sadie Miller, and you're listening to The Sirens of Audio.
G'day audiophiles, this is the Sirens of Audio, the show that explores the universe of Doctor Who in the audio medium. My name's Dwayne.
And my name is Philip. G'day Dwayne, g'day audiophiles.
G'day Philip, we're just having a little chuckle here because this is our take two. We don't usually do take twos, but we had to this time.
Yeah, that was an utter disaster we just did then, so
yeah.
We got it right this time, but I'm still smiling.
We might put the blooper on the end, eh? That could be fun.
Maybe. Yeah, all right, we were.
Yeah, thanks for watching and thanks for listening wherever you are accessing our wonderful content from, whether it's via the podcast feed or via YouTube. Drop us a comment, like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. I think the word is follow on Spotify, and you can give us a star if you want to follow us on Spotify as well and get notifications there. So do all those lovely things. You follow us everywhere. You'll never miss us. It's always good
make some comments on make some comments too. Apple Podcasts, we want some 5-star ratings and comments, and we'll even read them out.
We will. We absolutely will. So thank you for all your ongoing support. Today we are going to be speaking with Christopher Naylor, who has made a name for himself now as a recast version of the character Harry Sullivan, the beloved character Harry Sullivan. So it's going to be great to get some of his insights of playing that character, working for Big Finish, working with Tom Baker, as well as Sadie Miller, reprising the role, recreating the role of Sarah Jane Smith. So that's going to be fantastic to get some of those thoughts a bit later on in the show, Philip.
It will be indeed. Looking forward to it.
And it's been a day since the announcement of the 14th Doctor, so we were sort of talking a lot about that yesterday. Have you recovered yet? It's all still a bit of a buzz.
Still lots of conversation happening. I'm reading lots of news articles, and it's probably very old news by the time we actually put this out. But
it will be. Yes, it will be. This will be weeks after.
Weeks after it's happened, but it's still a buzz for us because it's all new. Who knows what's happened since then? But yeah, it's always exciting getting news of a new Doctor and the potential and the hope that comes with that sort of announcement.
And on the subject of recasting the role of the Doctor, I kind of sniff something that's coming from over yonder. It's a rabbit hole. Let's go. Right, Philip, we're here in the rabbit hole. And yeah, as I said, on the topic of recasting, we've just had a new Doctor recast, and we're talking with an actor this evening who has recast or been recast in the role of a character that we already know. And I want to get your thoughts, Philip, on how do we convince our audience that recasting is a good thing? Because you were one who was on the fence at one stage in terms of recasting, and I've never been on the fence with recasting. I've always been on board with it. So I want to get your perspective as to how you go from being a little bit cautious, a little bit cynical, to being a fan.
I guess ultimately it just comes down to listening, I think. So certainly with I wasn't particularly keen on the whole idea of recasting. And so when the third Doctor sets came out, I didn't get them originally, because I really wasn't interested in hearing them. And then you hear lots of people saying they're pretty good, and I was a bit more tempted. And finally it was something that came out, I think it was the Inferno one. I think John Coleshaw joined as well.
That's right.
Was that box set
Primordial?
Primordial, was that 3 or 4? Something fairly late on.
It was around that. It would have been the fourth one, I'd say.
So that was finally the thought. I'll listen to one and see what I think. And then it was so good, I went, oh, okay. And that sort of got me in, and then I went back and got the rest after that.
When you say so good, what do you mean? What was so good? Was it the sound of the Third Doctor's voice in your ears, or was it hearing the returning characters like Katie Manning, or what was it? The story? What was it?
What was it? It was, I think, a few things. Certainly, the quality of the story was. I think actually it probably was the story. It caught the tone of the era. So I mean, I don't think the performance is the Third Doctor's performance is necessarily. It isn't trying to capture John Pertwee. It's not an impersonation of him. I mean, John Coleshaw gets the Brigadier and nails him totally, but that's not what they're aiming to do with the other recast in the same way. But the tone of the story was a Third Doctor story, and I've never particularly read the books, so the Third Story books, but I love the era. I love the stories, and this is actually a way to get Third Doctor stories that I'll actually listen to and be involved in. So, because I love audio, I love listening, and the sound design, the sound effects, the music in particular, that all recaptured for me, that era, and the story was so well. It was modernized enough in terms of still capturing what people want from stories today, but still very much of the genre. And so it was those things combined that actually brought me back in. I mean, none of the voices. I mean, John Coleshaw will be the most voice. I mean, Katie Manning's voice isn't quite right in terms of her playing the young Jo, and certainly I got very used to her voice in the Companion Chronicles, where she's an older Jo telling a story. That didn't bother me in the least. So it took a bit of getting used to in terms of hearing her tonally. But yeah, I'm involved now, and the First Doctor set that came out. That was pretty amazing. The Outlaws is a really excellent story. Like, that really caught me up straight away. And there were things about the performance. I think some of the fluffs were a bit over the top, but they were amusing. They kept me amused. And Dodo, I enjoyed her. So once again, I think if people listen, they'll get caught up. How do you think people get involved?
Well, there are some people who insist that they are not going to get involved with anything to do with recasting whatsoever. So I've been thinking about this today in particular, because we're talking with an actor who's been recast in a role. And if you're a Doctor Who fan, aren't you already invested in the concept of recasting? Isn't that what Doctor Who is all about? Like, from the first time the main role, the lead role was recast in 1966, all those years ago, people were a little bit bemused by the whole concept at first, but there's been anecdotes of people on DVD documentaries and things that have said within 2 weeks we'd forgotten about William Hartnell and we're on with the second Doctor. So there's an argument that Doctor Who is geared for the concept of recasting already. So if you can handle that kind of recasting, surely you can handle other types of recasting. If you look at the classic series, the Daleks didn't change too much over the years, but I would suggest that the Cybermen are a classic example of recasting, because every time you saw them, they were a different design. Yep. So you had to deal with who are these guys, particularly the difference between the 10th Planet and the Moon Base. There was a total redesign of the Cybermen, and subtle redesigns all the way through the rest of the classic series. You've got characters like the Master, who of course is a Time Lord, so obviously that can be recast a little bit better in your mind, I suppose, as well as characters like Omega, Barusa. They've all been recast in the classic series. But what about characters like Davros? Davros was recast in the classic series, and there are people who insist that Michael Wisher is the one and only. But then you've got David Goodison, who's the one in between. But my favourite classic Davros is Terry Malloy. Yes. I think he puts the most into that character, and it's his. I mean, I've said previously that Revelation of the Daleks was the story that cemented me as a Doctor Who fan, and it's probably down to Terry Malloy's performance throughout that story. So he was a recast as well. And I'd never, at that point, when it was shown on TV, I had no memory of seeing Genesis of the Daleks on television. I had the cassette, I had Michael Wisher's voice in my ears on that condensed 60-minute version. But to me, Davros was Terry Malloy. Yeah. So, the Sontarans, we had a couple of episodes where the Sontaran was played by the same actor. But then the actors changed, obviously because Kevin Lindsay passed away. I guess maybe he would have come back if he was still around. I don't know. But so there's different areas there. So that's my view. If you're into Doctor Who, you're into recasting anyway, so that's worth giving these stories a go. And that's my view on that, and that's all I've got to say about that, Philip.
I agree. Anyhow, if people don't, that's their choice. There's enough other stuff for them to listen to. Yep, let's get out of the rabbit hole. I agree. All
right, we'll throw in a trailer for something that Christopher Naylor has been in, and we'll be back with him in just a moment.
From Big Finish Productions, Doctor Who, The Lost Stories, Return of the Cybermen.
I wouldn't mind going home for a bit.
Oh, don't be a drip, Harry. We've a whole universe to explore.
Commander, you need to get up here. It's the plague. Captain Warner's got the plague.
Back on good old Space Station Nova.
Harry! Doctor!
Sarah!
What are you doing?
Destroying our intruders. Oh, seems you were right, old girl.
Never miss the obvious, do you, Harry?
Why do you want to kill us?
Silence, Kelman, and put the gun away. I'm in command here. You too, Lester.
His nerves. I can actually see all the nerves in his face.
Black, swollen, and branching like trees. I've seen this before. I know I have, but where?
I've lost most of our crew from it. We're all that's left now.
And have you had medical help from Earth?
What's your name?
Sarah.
No! Get off me! Anitra, what was that? A thing, a silver thing.
Sick bay.
Doctor, that's where we left Sarah.
Let's go.
You're not going anywhere.
Listen to me!
Let's try this!
Cybermat. Did I say that?
Why would gold have any effect on these creatures?
I'll show you. See here.
Doctor!
I'm thinking.
Sarah's dangerously ill. Don't you care?
Harry, of course I care, but we must do something now.
Now look here.
Shh. What's in those cupboards?
Kelman! Doesn't your gun work?
Of course it works.
Cease firing.
Fancy meeting you Cybermen like this.
We were not ready to meet you.
What a pity.
Help me!
Come on, Harry!
That's incredible. It's moving. Doctor!
Now, there's a cyber leader.
You should have learned by now. Resistance is useless.
Now, Sarah...
Well, if you're just going to stand there, you don't mind if I start getting dressed, do you? I thought that might work.
Forgive me, gentlemen. You might possibly wonder what I'm doing under your table, but would you believe it? I'm a furniture inspector.
He must be destroyed!
No!
Goatse! We're all doomed.
Oh, it's no good, Doctor.
Well, there's only one thing. The gold dust.
We need that for the Cybermen.
We won't get to the Cybermen if we don't stop the Cybermans.
A little optimism never hurt anyone.
Hang on, I've got an idea. Now, don't you boys let me down.
Oh! No!
Silence! You have just 60 seconds to bring us back on course.
You use that one's gun and join me. Together we can take the control room. Now, come on!
We're getting really close to the asteroid.
Yes, on any other day, it'll probably be quite an impressive view.
You cannot destroy me!
I can think of nicer places to end up.
So try to make sure we don't end up there, then.
Big Finish. We love stories.
For this treachery, nobody leaves Nova.
There's a number of people who are now joining the brigade of Doctor Who actors who are playing recast characters. We're getting to see lots of wonderful people coming back to the show and being played again. And tonight, now playing Harry Sullivan is Christopher Naylor. Christopher, thank you for joining us.
Hello, thank you. Very pleased to be here.
So, yeah, Dwayne and I have just been talking about recasting and the role that it's playing now and the opportunity we get to see old Doctors and stories coming back again. And, of course, you've brought back one of our favourites in terms of Harry Sullivan.
Oh.
And so we're looking forward to talking about how that happened. But, of course, you've got a very long and distinguished career before that and done lots of other audio work. Do you want to tell us a bit about how you first became an actor?
Well, I guess I'd always wanted to be an actor since I first saw Star Wars, actually. Being a fan of Star Wars and Doctor Who were kind of simultaneous for me. So mid-70s. And I can remember vaguely working out that there was a difference between being Luke Skywalker and playing Luke Skywalker in a film. And when I worked that out, when I realized that you could actually go off and be on a film set and pretend to be somebody, then it just seemed like the most exciting thing I could possibly imagine. Probably more exciting than genuinely being a sort of hero in the further reaches of the galaxy. So I started thinking about it then, and I would do plays at school, and that sort of thing, and then at university. And I'd already worked out my path. I knew that I had to get to drama school. So I did the auditions, and there it was, and I was on the way. So it's quite a traditional route to the career, really.
What did the family think about you becoming an actor?
They were great, completely supportive. My dad was really excited about it. I mean, he was from a pretty conventional background, really. He was an accountant, and there'd never been anybody artistic in the family, really. I tell a lie, my uncle was an architect, so he was always drawing and doing paintings and stuff, but never any theatricals. So I was the first. And he was so supportive, and he was very happy that I went to university first and got an English degree, just in case I ever needed that to fall back on. But both he and my mum were, really, really behind me all the way. Dad would love coming to all of my plays and all of my shows at drama school, and would buy everybody a drink. And he was just really excited to see me up there showing off.
So which drama school did you go to?
I went to LAMDA in London, the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art, which is a lovely school. And I think it's possibly, they used to say it was the oldest drama school in the world, but that's probably disputed, so don't quote me on that. But yeah, had three wonderful years there. They do, yeah.
So when you finished drama school, where did you head?
What did I do first? The first stuff I got a very small part in a television show called Bugs. I don't know if Bugs ever made it over the pond.
It did actually make it out here. Very good. Yeah, it did.
Right. It was kind of the Doctor Who replacement, really. I think it tried to fill that slot, certainly that time slot on the Saturday night on BBC One. And it was a bit sort of sci-fi, set in the present day. So there was sort of technology stuff, and it tried to get that audience, I think. But it wasn't so great. And by the time I was in it, I think it was the fourth series, and most of the principals had left, like Craig McLachlan was one of the leads, and he'd gone by this point. And there's an actor called Jesse Birdsall, and I had scenes with him, and a scene. I played a computer operative, and I got clubbed over the head with a rubber gun, and then had to save the day. So that was my first, and that was while I was still at drama school in my third year. And it was terribly exciting to be on a TV set. And I was completely sort of panic-stricken the whole time. Really scary, fresh out of the box. And then after that, I was off to theatre, and I did a priestly play called Dangerous Corner in a lovely little theatre in the countryside called The Watermill. And off I went, a long time ago.
So you were sort of... We've spoken to a number of people, and sort of actors older than you, most of them cut their teeth doing regional theatre and that sort of thing. But seeing actors now moving younger than you, it's getting a lot harder. There's not so much of the theatre work. It seems to be dying out a bit.
Yeah.
How much time were you trying to spend in terms of theatre, learning your craft? How much time were you trying to get television and other things?
Well, I wish I had a sort of laser-like vision for what I wanted. I know some actors do, and they know precisely what they want, and they go for it. I think I was just happy to be working. I'd be lost in wonder backstage while the play was going on, waiting for my next entrance, just amazed at all the lights and just how exciting it all was. So I didn't really have a career plan as such. I was just thrilled to be working. And yeah, I think you're right. I mean, coming up for 25 years ago that I first started out, and there was a lot of theatre about, a lot of regional theatre, and telly was a sort of lucky bonus if it came along. I mean, I got some good early stuff. I was watching very sad news that Dennis Waterman died yesterday. I don't know if you're aware.
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, a lovely actor who was a big part of my childhood, and I used to watch The Sweeney and Minder and all those shows. Yeah, great show. But I was very lucky in my second TV job to work with John Thor from The Sweeney, of course, and Inspector Morse on an interesting drama called Plastic Man, about a plastic surgeon who gets embroiled in crimes and murders and things, something like that. and I played a young medical student. And so I had this wonderful education of lovely scenes with John, this wonderful duologue scene. We spent the whole day, just he and I in a room doing this scene. And he was very supportive, and it was so interesting to be with somebody that experienced and that famous on television anyway, and watch him work and watch him be so sort of disciplined and detailed. So I was getting those kind of experiences, but yeah, mostly in theatre. And of course, as you say, I mean, it's a lot harder now, and COVID has not helped. I mean, COVID completely decimated the theatre world, and it's gradually making its way back. And I think actors are just having to find their feet again, find their way back into a profession which is almost impossible to get into in the first place.
Yeah. Well, what are some of your favourite roles or plays you've worked in?
Oh, I've done some good ones. I mean, one of my favorites actually was the last one I did, and I was in Australia when COVID struck. I was on tour with the National Theatre over here in Warhorse. Warhorse is a big show set in the First World War, and it was hugely successful here on the British stage about 10 years ago, and has been touring ever since. And I played a lovely part, sort of in the second half. My character takes hold of these horses and tries to escape from the war, and it's very spectacular and tragic. And that was a wonderful part. Friedrich Müller, German officer, who just wants to get away from the war. And yeah, that was a great show and a wonderful experience, because we toured it in the UK, and then we went all over the place. We went to Paris and New Zealand, Hong Kong, and what
parts of Australia did you do? I don't remember it being in Sydney.
Yes, it was in Sydney. We did Melbourne first, so it was sort of January 2020, just before COVID descended on us all. And we had we did 5 weeks, I think, in Melbourne, and then a month in Sydney. But what's the theatre? I can never remember the theatre names. Lovely theatre anyway, great big theatre where they do lots of musicals. Down by the harbour, down by one of the harbours.
Opera House, not Pier 1.
No, I might do some subtle googling. No, I won't. But you can do some subtle googling.
Sydney Theatre, maybe Sydney Theatre.
No, oh dear. Lovely place. Anyway,
the Lyric Theatre.
It was the Lyric.
At the casino.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, that's right. The Lyric. I've even got a towel upstairs. They gave us all towels, engraved, monogram towels, which was lovely. But yeah, so we had a wonderful month there, and then we moved on to Perth, and we were going to open in Perth, and then everything's shut down. So we had a week's holiday in Perth, and then they flew us back into sort of total lockdown. But so that was a great part.
It's stunning. I saw the play when it first came out to Australia. When it first opened, I don't know, it was about 15 years ago, I think.
Right,
and the puppetry of the horses was just astounding. Like, you believed there was horses on stage the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. I played that. I did that show for nearly a year and a half, and I never got bored. I just loved it. So that was a real high spot, that one.
And I see you played the West End a few times, at least The Woman in Black and other places.
Yeah. That was a good show. That may have made it over to you. I'm not sure. In some,
I've seen a production of it. I'm not sure whether there was that production.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's in a way. I always feel like it's an education in theatre, because it tells you how to tell a story, and in a way, it tells an audience how to watch a story, how to watch a play, because it sort of built from the ground up, and there are no real props. And not really much in the way of costumes. It's all done before your eyes. And then you have these marvelous, very simple effects that are completely terrifying. And when it's done well, I mean, it's been running for years and years. And I did it maybe 10 years ago now. It's just such a thrill. It's a real thrill to frighten people. And it's something that I think theatre doesn't do very much. I think we sort of, are far more interested in making people laugh, or, giving them a good song or something like that, or serious drama. But the art of actually terrifying people in the theatre is quite a rare thing to achieve. And when it works, it's amazing, because you're trapped in the room as an audience member. You're trapped in that room with the thing that frightens you. I mean, you can't
in the dark.
Put it on yeah, that's right. You can't put it on pause and go and get a cup of coffee or something, but you're there. You're stuck in the room, and that show does it particularly well. So I really loved The Woman in Black.
Now, you mentioned you became an actor partly because of Star Wars, but also because of Doctor Who. So do you want to tell us a bit about your Doctor Who connections and your interest in that?
Well, I always say it kind of faded into my life, really, because I was born in 1972, and the television was always on a Saturday night because the sport was on. So my brother and my dad were watching the sport all day, and then it would sort of segue into family viewing and Doctor Who. And so I can't really remember when I first became aware of it, but I have very early sort of faint memories of Harry and Sarah Jane. They're definitely there. I'm sure there were repeats as well, but I will have been around when Tom first appeared. And I have a very clear memory of the Pyramids of Mars being completely terrifying. So, yeah, and I don't know, it just grabbed me. I mean, there's so many of us, aren't there, who had that experience of watching the show very young, and it having a profound effect on us. And I think the music, those opening titles, all of the iconography of the show, the TARDIS, in my era, Tom's scarf and his hair and, his manner, those things just sort of burn themselves into my consciousness. And so, like so many people, I would climb into the wardrobe and pretend it was the TARDIS, and I played Doctor Who at school. I had a long scarf, brown scarf. Unfortunately, my mum didn't knit me a stripy one. And the way I would always express myself as a child really was to draw stuff. So if I was enthusiastic about something, I would draw it. And so, I found a couple of years ago these amazing tiny little drawings, these top trumps. I don't know if you had top trumps, which you collector's cards. Yeah. And I'd drawn Doctor Who top trumps. So I had William Hartnell and Patrick Troughton, John Pertwee and Tom, all drawn very, very rudimentary style in pencil on the back of a cornflakes packet that I'd cut out. So yeah, it goes way back with me. It's some of my earliest memories probably are Doctor Who memories.
And people who are watching the YouTube, my background is your artwork of different doctors. So you obviously continue to draw doctors.
That's right. Yeah.
So did you keep watching Doctor Who to the end of it's going off air, or did you fade out?
I probably faded out. I mean, Tom was my big man, really. And when he turned into Peter Davison, I was kind of stunned and I think grieving for a while. I was in mourning for Tom, but I didn't stop watching. I carried on watching, and I think I probably stayed with it. I might have started sort of fading out a bit during Sylvester's time, but was hugely excited when it came back again. So I've always sort of kept an eye on the show as the years have rolled on.
So when it came back with Chris Eccleston, you tuned back in and started watching again.
Yeah. I can remember that first night. In fact, I'd gone to Cornwall to see some friends in Cornwall, and we all watched the show together. And it was an interesting one because there was a big bookshop in town, and they had a Dalek in the bookshop. And a couple of years before, I'd been there, and I'd seen this Dalek, and I saw this mum and her young boy walking up, and the mum went, "Oh, there's a Dalek." And this little boy went, "What's a Dalek?" Because Doctor Who was off the air. And it was in the big gap. And I was rather stunned, thinking how awful that poor little boy doesn't know what a Dalek is. And then when the show came back, I thought, now that boy knows what a Dalek is. So yeah, it was so exciting, wasn't it, when the show came back again?
Certainly. So when did you start doing audio work? Was that part of doing your stagecraft and your television stuff?
I mean, we learned audio techniques at drama school, and everybody took part in a sort of BBC competition called the Carlton Hobbs Award. Don't know if they still do that. And I would do radio plays occasionally. I remember I did a couple with a wonderful cast of actors, the Silas Marner, George Eliot book. with a marvelous actor called Alex Jennings, and I don't know if you know him, he's a fine actor. He must have done Doctor Who, but a really good actor. So I'd done some of that, and I'd done some more BBC audio drama stuff. But Big Finish came along quite a bit later. I mean, it's probably about 6 or 7 years ago now. And I've been working with a lovely actor called Jamie Newell. Now, Jamie has worked in a few of the Jago and Lightfoot things and some of the Doctor Who stuff. And he'd been working for them. And I said, oh, God, I'd love to work with Big Finish because I'm a big Doctor Who fan. And so he gave me David Richardson's email address. He must have asked David first, I suppose. And so I wrote to David and said, I'd love to work with you. I'm a big fan of Doctor Who. And he wrote back straight away. I mean, it was like 10 minutes later, an email came back from David saying, oh, well, we'll see if we can get you in. And then they did. And my first one, I think, was either an Avengers or Sherlock Holmes.
I was trying to work that out because the first release was the Avengers, the comic strip.
Oh, was it?
Was that yes. One? But trying to date your work with Big Finish is hard work because there's stuff that I know you recorded 2-3 years ago that isn't coming out to 2023. Yeah, because you've got stuff on the website coming out, in 2 years' time.
Yes, it's completely bamboozling for me. And the thing is, because you record them so far in the past, that by the time they come out, you have to go, oh, now which one was that?
Is it mainly just Tom Baker's though that are years ahead?
Yeah. I mean, Tom, they record. He's always recording with them, so they have a big backlog, and it's very pragmatic. And Tom, I think, is fully aware of the sort of the pragmatism behind the thinking because he's not a young man. No. He loves working, and I think they just want to make sure they have a good stock of Tom stories stretching into the future.
Yeah. He could still outsurvive all the other doctors, mind you.
He could. He's extraordinary, isn't he? He just keeps on going. He's a fine fellow. I mean, I haven't seen him for a while, of course, because of COVID. But it's the sort of thrill of my life to know Tom and to work with Tom.
I was going to say, what was it like when you first met him?
Well, I first met him for I don't know what I was playing, a robot, I think, something, not Harry. This is before I was cast as Harry, because I'd said to David Richardson in a break when I was recording something else, I said, I would love to work with Tom. And he said, well, I'll see what I can do. And, there it was, it happened. And so I was very nervous because I'd heard all the stories about what Tom used to be like in the 70s and what a difficult chap he was in those days. And I thought, what happens if I don't get on with him? What happens if he's horrible? Never meet your heroes, all of that. But he was lovely. He was immediately lovely and friendly and welcoming and avuncular and full of stories and, everything you'd want him to be. And I think there is a thing that often happens with very famous people is that people are nervous of talking to them. And so we were all crammed together in this little green room in the studio in the countryside. And people were a bit wary, I think, of talking to him. And so I thought, well, I want to talk to him. So I did. I started having a chat and sat next to him and had a cup of tea and it was lovely. So, I was relieved that he turned out to be absolutely what I wanted him to be, really.
He's known for telling outrageous stories.
Yes.
Does he? Are they as outrageous as people say?
They can be. I mean, I think sometimes Tom is quite a provocative person still. And I think he likes to tell a story to see what reaction he'll get. And when you've worked with him a lot, some of the stories get a bit more familiar, but he'll always put a little twist in them. And I mean, and the good thing about Tom is that he's very democratic. He will listen to your stories as well and appreciate them. And he loves a good anecdote. I think a theatrical anecdote particularly makes him very happy. And whenever he works with an actor who has a good theatre pedigree, he gets very excited. And, there was somebody who I think had worked with Olivier, and Tom, of course, had worked with Olivier way back. And I think Tom was really thrilled about that. But I was telling him a story, a terrible time where I'd forgotten my lines in the middle of a production of Hard Times, Dickens adaptation. And how I sort of struggled to recover, and it had been absolutely appalling. And Tom loved this story; he was just reveling in it. And he said, "Oh, that's a wonderful story. You know, you could really work that up and make it into a wonderful anecdote." And I thought, oh, that's a little insight into how Tom operates: gets a story and then works it up and massages it and develops it and polishes it so it's perfect.
You should have handed it over to him.
Maybe he started telling it for himself, but he's got enough of his own. He doesn't need mine.
Did you ever end up working up that anecdote? And would you like to let us know about it now?
I've probably worked it up over the years from what it was anyway, but I mean, it was just mortification, really. I mean, it was a lovely production of a fine adaptation of Hard Times, which is a beautiful book. And we were all playing about 10 parts, 5 people cast, at this lovely theatre called the Watermill, where I got my first job. And it was the last matinee. We'd had this wonderful month-long run, and I was terribly proud of myself because I hadn't got a word wrong for the entire run. And one of my best friends from drama school was in the audience that matinee. And I had this duologue, me and a lovely actor called Andrew Bridgemont, fine actor. The duologue was going very well, and I was playing this rather gauche young man who's very impressed by this glamorous older man. And suddenly I got my cue, but I said the wrong line. I said the next line instead of my proper line. And rather than jumping ahead with me, Andrew then said his next line, which would have led me into saying that same line again. I thought, well, I can't say it again. I've already said it. So what am I going to do? And my mind went completely blank. I can remember every thought sort of flying out of my head. And I looked at Andrew, and he looked at me, and he didn't say anything either. So the pair of us were sort of stuck on stage in silence, and I had this whiskey glass in my hand. So I put the whiskey glass down on the floor, and I said, anyway, and then couldn't think of anything else to say. So I picked my whiskey glass back up again, thinking that might give me some inspiration. And it didn't, and time sort of stopped and stretched out. It's a horrendous feeling, absolutely appalling when you have a dry. It's the worst feeling you can imagine. It feels like it goes on forever.
Like a Chekhov play.
Yes, much like a Chekhov play. Or a Pinter with endless pauses.
Yes.
And then I thought, oh, this is really funny. So I laughed and then thought, no, it's not funny. This is your job. Concentrate, say something. So I sort of clawed my way back into the script and cut out about a page and a half, quite important sort of plot, staggered back into the scene, and we got to the end, and then I sort of almost fell off stage into the arms of another actor, and who comforted me, having been through that experience many times in the past. It was truly awful, and I always remember it, and sort of one of those waking up in a cold sweat sort of moments. But yeah. So
there was no real whiskey in the glass then?
No, I wish there had.
You would have needed it.
Yeah, it's just pure apple juice, probably.
Did the audience pick up on it, do you think?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, sometimes they don't. But, I mean, you can glide over so much. But there are some where, you know, I've seen shows where actors have dried, and maybe it's because I'm an actor as well, but you just want to crawl under your seat and hide because you can see how awful it is for them. But I saw my friend afterwards who'd been in the audience, and I said, it was obvious, wasn't it? And she said, yeah, it was really obvious. So that was a bad one.
So I guess the advantage of doing audio is you get to hold the scripts with you and you don't learn the lines.
That's right. Audio is a very civilized way of working as an actor, because you have your words, you do your prep, of course, beforehand. And I always do my prep. You know, Tom is extraordinary amounts of prep. You know, his script will be highlighted but covered in notes and sort of suggestions. You know, he's very good at making little line alterations that he thinks are appropriate. But then, yeah, you can relax. You can sit in the green room and have a cup of tea and a coconut macaroon, and which Tom always provides. So yeah, it's a good way of working.
Please leave a review for us on Apple Podcasts. And please like, share, subscribe and comment on our YouTube videos. Then you shall be like us.
So what do you do to prep a script? What's your technique?
Well, I mean, I always read it all the way through, and then I go back over my own scenes. But for Harry, then there's a sort of extra layer of work, really, which is I need to make sure I have Ian Marter's voice in my head when I'm reading it, and try and get close to his sort of intonation, and just that kind of reaction that his Harry always had to those scenarios. And I try and carry that with me when I'm working.
How did you get cast as Harry? How was that decision made?
It was purely out of the blue as far as I was concerned. But John Dorney and David tell the story that I think they were listening to me in the control room for something, and just remarked that I sounded a bit like Ian Marter. I had a similar kind of voice register, perhaps, and just as a person, I think I have maybe a slightly more formal way of expressing myself, slightly old-fashioned thing about me, which and it just made them think of Harry. And so I was on my way back from the supermarket, and David sent me a text, and it's one of those things that nearly didn't happen because I was about to go off and do Warhorse, and I'd been telling everybody very excitedly that I was going to go off around the world for a year and a half. And David thought, oh no, we were going to cast him as Harry, and now he's not going to be around. So he sent me a text saying, I wasn't going to tell you this because we didn't think you could do it, but maybe you can, maybe we can make it work. I said, well, we have to make it work. This can't not happen. I will do everything I can to make sure this can happen. And so we just started looking at schedules, the Warhorse schedule and their recording schedule. And I really, whenever I could, I would get to the studio. So if I had a day off from rehearsal, or when the show was in the UK, if I had a day off, then I would travel down to the studio and record. So it was a bolt from the blue for me, but a really wonderful one.
So does that mean you did a lot of the recording by yourself, just other people reading in lines?
No. We were able to do it. They were sort of able to book recording days around me, which was very kind of them. And so, everybody was there. Tom was there, and Eleanor, because a lot of those I was recording with the character of Naomi, who we haven't quite appeared yet. We haven't appeared with Tom yet, but we've been doing some
unit, but nowhere else yet.
Yeah. So most of the recordings during that Warhorse time were with her, and so it was a very busy time for me because I'd be doing the play, and then Monday was my day off when we were in the show in London, and I'd get on the train and go down to Kent and record with Tom. So yeah, busy. Nice to be juggling two jobs. Doesn't often happen in an actor's life.
So it sounds like it was very important for you to get the essence of Harry across. Yeah. So what sort of prep were you doing to capture Harry?
Well, I just watched it all, really. I watched it all again. I got the Blu-ray set, and I read Harry Sullivan's War and some of Ian Marter's adaptations, novelizations. He's a good writer, and obviously understands. Great writer, yeah, and really gets the essence of the character because he was inside that character, and he, it was written around him, and he added so much, brought so much personality and wit and just sort of humanity to Harry. So I will always. I mean, I'm looking at a script now, so I've got a bit of viewing to do over the next couple of days, just to get his voice back in my head again.
Did you have any trepidation about recasting such an iconic role? I mean, you did appear in a First Doctor box set before that with David Bradley. The entire cast was recast. So did you get any opinions yourself on recasting and what that might mean?
Well, I mean, I think from an actor's point of view, most of our lives are about playing characters that other people have played before. And in some cases, those characters have been played in a very iconic and definitive way, you might say. I mean, certainly in sort of classical theatre and Shakespeare, that's a very familiar concept. This is, I suppose, it's more specialized because usually those characters, certainly in terms of the assistants, companions, have been played only by one person. And so those are the definitive performance. So I suppose, trepidation, maybe that is the word for it. I mean, I'm aware that it's not always popular with some areas of Doctor Who fandom. And, I can understand that. People are entitled to be purists and just want to, stick with the originals. But from my point of view, I mean, I suppose it's about trying to think about the character and that chemistry that particularly Tom and Liz Sladen and Ian had together. That was such an exciting thing, wasn't it, for the show? It was such a wonderful energy that they brought. And I suppose wanting to try and recapture that and revisit that is a rather noble thing. And I know that Sadie particularly, when we work together with Tom, we want to do justice to the work that those other actors did. And of course, for Sadie, she has an extra layer because she has that emotional connection with her mum. And it means a lot to her, and it means a lot to me to try and get it right, and to try and sort of honor their memories, really. But it is a pressure, particularly when it meant a lot to me. I mean, those shows and Ian Marter. I loved Harry when I was a boy. I thought he was brilliant. He was such a heroic, brave, but very human character. And I want to get it right. I try very hard to capture the essence as well as I can.
He was proof that old school guys could still be nice. Not a popular view today.
Well, true. Yeah. I mean, he's a real throwback, and he was a throwback even in 1974, wasn't he? I mean, Harry is a perfect example of the sort of British, daring do type hero, the sort of John Hannay type actor, Richard Hannay, I should say, John Buchan character. And who probably never really existed, but that sort of fair play, play the game type character, and impeccable manners. He may have a rather sort of old-fashioned vocabulary, which is very out of place. But he's like the Doctor and Sarah, very open-minded, very liberal-minded character, and fair play is what it's all about. So I think he fits very well into a modern world where things don't always play fair. So I think there's still a place for a character like Harry now.
I've really enjoyed his appearances in the Big Finish unit stories. So we don't quite know. We don't know yet why on earth Harry's in the 21st century. I guess we're going to find that out through some of the stuff that's going to be released the next year or two. Harry's ended up in modern times. But he's such a fascinating character to have amongst all the modern characters, because his dialogue is still old dialogue. I mean, he's got class, he's got structure, but to actually hear his language played against being written differently to all the other characters, the syntax and all those things, and the little turns of phrase he uses, he's just charming and funny, because it stands out. The performance is just so slightly different from everyone else around him in terms of and it really works really well.
Yes, he's a fish out of water, isn't he? And has to adapt very quickly to a world that doesn't make a great deal of sense to him. And in a strange way, I think that's quite easy to relate to, particularly as the years roll by. I mean, I'm experiencing it myself, and lockdown has made us all have to come to grips with technology. I'm much happier with a book and an LP or something like that, and so I can absolutely relate to Harry's confusion at the modern world and technophobia. But the good thing is, Harry has absolutely the right attitude that we should all have as we move through life and it changes around us, which is to embrace it and not try not to put up barriers to it, but to be open to it. You may not be able to keep pace with it, but you have to try and appreciate it and not resist it. So that's what I love about him. He's very open to new things.
Do you know why the decision was made just to have him appear out of time, out of place, with no explanation? Was it
Well, there probably is going to be an explanation.
Oh, I'm sure there will be. But I mean, he's certainly just suddenly there.
Yeah,
there's no background given at all. Just sort of he's there. And you just, I can't believe how quickly you just accept the fact he's there.
Yes.
But he's 40 years at a time.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's Big Finish is an interesting thing, isn't it? It's an interesting world that they create because there are people, I think, who have a very sort of clear view of the timelines of everything and how it all slots together. They're able to keep all of these things in their head and say, "Oh, well, that relates to this story which happened here," and you can put together a sort of jigsaw of a web of time. I think they like to bamboozle people. I think they like to create sort of teasers and cliffhangers, and the release schedule does that very effectively. A few years down the line, when all the pieces have fallen into place and it all becomes clear, then it'll make a lot of sense. But frankly, I haven't got a clue. But so it's exciting for me as well to see the order in which the story is told. And time is such an elastic concept anyway.
Oh, indeed.
Even if you did have a clue, it was so long ago you've forgotten.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure you must have recorded it. You just don't know what you've recorded.
Well, I mean, there are pieces probably that I haven't recorded yet. I don't know.
Okay, in fact, you've got a script just over there.
Yes.
May
answers are in that one though.
Now, you've also had the chance to work with an amazing cast, people like Ben Miles, David Bradley, Alex Kingston, David Tennant.
Indeed, yeah.
So,
Catherine Tate, yeah, wonderful people.
Yeah, so what's it like to be able to keep going and working with these days here or there with these amazing actors?
Well, it's wonderful. It's a bit of a whirlwind, really, because, like you say, they are quite short recording sort of things. So, I mean, 2 days at the most, usually. So it's very exciting. And Big Finish is able to get really good people because it's very attractive. And I think a lot of actors don't, in the past anyway, you'd never really get asked if you wanted to do radio. I think, particularly with the BBC, they used to assume that famous actors certainly didn't really want to do it. They didn't have time to do it. They're too busy to do it, and they just weren't. And actually, actors love working in radio because, like I say, it's civilized work. The parts are really good. You don't have to learn it. And it's very convivial atmosphere. And so it's one of the great things, one of the joys about working with Big Finish is that, finding out who's going to be there on the day. And it was lovely working with David Tennant and Catherine Tate. We had such a blast that day. Really fun script. They're lovely people. That's one of the lovely things is getting to know people a little bit and discovering that they're just really nice. I work a lot with John Dorney as a writer and an editor. John being the writer, of course, and he says that one of the main criterion that they have for working with actors is they have to be easy to work with. They have to be nice people that you can get along with. So they'll try and find that out about somebody before they cast them. And so you find yourself having a lovely time with people that you've always wanted to work with. I mean, I had an amazing day working with Derek Jacobi on something a few years ago. What was that? It was a Doctor Who story.
War Master.
It must have been a War Master thing. Yeah. What a nice man. What a lovely, happy, enthusiastic person. And so that's really one of the perks of the job, is getting to have those sort of days.
You must be a very nice person, because I know if they've cast you as a companion, they only cast the people that they really like as companions, so they look out for those roles. So yeah, having spoken to a number of the different companions being recast, I can guarantee that you must be up there amongst those really nice people.
Well, I can't possibly comment on that, can I? No,
you can't, but that's okay. I'll say it for you. Now, you've still got lots of stuff yet to come out. There's a whole season of Fourth Doctor stories to come out, which I assume is you and Naomi. I think it's been announced.
Yeah.
And there's also some Lost stories coming out because they've remade. Well, they found the original script for the Ark in Space, so they've remade that because you've already done Return of the Cybermen.
Yeah.
Which was quite a big success in terms of being able to contrast what was released with what was done. What's it like? And they're also doing. I think there's a version of Genesis of the Daleks.
Yes.
Early version coming out as well. Have you recorded those? They recorded now, I assume.
Yes, those have been recorded. They're great. I think people will love them.
Yeah. So what's it like doing? If you know the originals, what's it like doing the Lost Story version of it?
It's an interesting one because you get the scripts are in different stages and obviously have been, changed. But there are echoes, strong echoes, sometimes very similar lines or identical lines to the versions that we all know. And so, yeah, you get these odd little sort of shivers when you find yourself saying the same lines and being in the same situations. And when we had something very similar, of course, with the recent new Unbound, the Doctor of War thing, where we did the sort of climactic scene from Genesis of the Daleks, with Tom saying those same lines and with a different outcome. I mean, that was an extraordinary experience, really. But I mean, these two new ones that are coming out, they're great. The Genesis one is Genesis of Terror, I think they're calling it. Is that right? Yes. And there is just the one episode, the opening episode that was, I presume, was a draft episode. So we got to do that one. And it's very close, of course, to the one that was filmed, but with sort of various subtle differences here and there. And so that was a great thrill. And then we all, narrate synopses of the next episodes. But the arc, as we're calling it, is much more involved and deviates quite a bit from the arc in space, and has some wonderful action stuff and some really good meaty stuff for Harry to get his teeth into. Yeah, and it's, of course, it's great doing new scripts with new monsters and adversaries and things, but there is a sort of thrill that comes from that familiar territory, but with a twist. Yeah, it's really lovely.
No, it was interesting you mentioning the Doctor of War, because it was having that host beginning remastered was fascinating. But the thing that got me was John Dorney just loves murdering off the male companions of Doctor Who. So I think you're either the third or the fourth male companion he's killed off.
He's a very capricious person.
I think, what is it about John Dorney killing off all the male companions? He just loves doing it. So
he does, yes.
You're in a long line of murdered off companions by John Dorney.
Yeah, well, it's a great honour. I should get a plaque, shouldn't I?
There was one Lost Story that sort of sits a bit in the shadow of Return of the Cybermen that you also appeared in, and that was the Doomsday Contract, which was written by Nev Fountain. You were in that one, weren't you?
That's right. Yes. Yeah, so, that was a very interesting one. Yeah. Yeah,
is that where you worked with? Did you record that before you met up with Lala Ward in Hong Kong? I heard you met up with her there.
Yes, I did. I'm not sure. I think we recorded the Doomsday Contract remotely when COVID had struck. So no, I was in Hong Kong in 2019 with Warhorse, and I'd already worked with Lala on a few things really for Big Finish, and so we got to know each other. And I told her I was going to be in Hong Kong, and so she took me out for lunch. Took me to this wonderful restaurant overlooking the harbour. Amazing. A wonderful tasting menu, went on for hours, incredibly generous of her. And then she and her husband, Nick, came to see the show in Hong Kong and took me out for cocktails afterwards. So yeah, what a thrill. I mean, I was 7 when she became Romana, and the idea that 40 years later she'd be taking me for lunch in Hong Kong is almost inconceivable. But yeah, it's one of those very peculiar things that life can throw at you.
It was probably nice for Lala to see someone face to face. She probably does all her work remotely.
Well, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, she's not over very, very often, and of course, since COVID, that hasn't really happened. But yeah, she's lovely.
So, what's in the future? What are your plans for what's coming up?
Well, as I say, there's a script over there, so that will be dealt with, and there are things in the pipeline. I hope, fingers crossed, that things emerge. And as far as everything else, I'm doing a lot of artwork at the moment, doing lots of paintings and art commissions and things. Tell us a bit about your artwork, because as I said, you have
website where people can actually go and purchase your art. As I said, I've got a piece of artwork behind me. There's a beautiful piece I saw, which was all the James Bonds in their opening poses, which is a beautiful piece of artwork that you can get.
Oh, thanks.
So tell us a bit about why art. I mean, you always said you were always drawing.
Yes.
Why is art important to you?
I don't know. It's I guess it's one of those things, isn't it? Like I say, often you'll find with actors that there's another creative string to the bow, and I think acting is a wonderful job, and it's very exciting, but it's also kind of interpretive as much as it's creative. You have your input, but it's somebody else's words and somebody else's world that they've created, and I think that can leave actors feeling creatively frustrated. And so you'll find a lot of actors are musicians, or they write themselves, or they want to direct. For me, it's always been about drawing. It kind of went on the back burner for a long time, but like I say, when I was a child, I used to draw constantly. I was always drawing. But when I started acting, and certainly when I was at drama school, there was just no time to do that. I would occasionally draw my characters on my scripts and trying to visualize how I thought they should look. But it kind of took a back seat. And I don't know what happened. I started painting murals. So I'd be doing big pictures on people's walls in downtime when I wasn't acting, and discovering I could get paid quite nicely for it. And so it just developed into this sort of second career alongside. And so now whenever I'm not working, or even when I am working, I'll just pick up a pencil and start drawing. And yeah, I sell paintings, I sell prints, drawings, I take commissions. It's a wonderful way of just sort of expressing myself. I love it. So
where can people go and see some of your artwork?
They can go, the best place, you can find me on Instagram. Where am I on? I think I'm Chris Naylor Artist on Instagram. So I tend to post them all there, and you can buy the prints and things on Etsy. I have a little Etsy store. Again, Chris Naylor Art, I think I am on Etsy. All these different names we have these days, I have to try and remember them all. So I'm out there. You'll find me, I'm sure.
I did stumble across your YouTube channel as well, where you've got some time-lapse videos on your artwork too.
Yes, that's right. I just I put a few up. I've just finished I got a commission to a miniature painting of Walter Raleigh, which is about this big, for a tiny frame. So I thought I'll time lapse that, because it's quite interesting to see, step-by-step process. Trying to embrace the modern world,
I also saw you've got a few audio readings there too. I was interested in the Sherlock Holmes, the Speckled Band, I think it was, that you've got there.
Yes. No, it was the Blue Carbuncle.
That's right.
Yes, Christmas.
What is it that makes a good audiobook? What do you like to inject into your audiobook readings to make them unique?
I really love doing it. It's quite hard work. I've done loads over the years, lots of children's books, and the children's books are kind of a different proposition because you have to really max up the character voices. And so when I do those, I always have a crib sheet. I work through it and allocate voices to different characters and have a crib sheet next to me. So I think when I turn the page, I'm not surprised that I suddenly have to shift into a different voice. It never feels any different really to any other sort of acting to me. It's all about being connected and being present and wanting to tell the story. And I think with an audio book, you're telling it to one person, I think is the best thing to have in your mind, reading it. You're telling the story to just one person. You can't imagine that there are lots of other people listening. It has to be a very personal experience, I think. It's a pretty basic fundamental thing, actually. We all love stories. I mean, Big Finish go on about that, don't they? We just love having stories told. We like having people telling you a joke. Nothing better than somebody telling you a joke really well. It's really well set up and paced, and the punchline lands when it should. I mean, it's a really satisfying thing, isn't it? Or being told an anecdote. It's why Tom is so entertaining, because he tells his anecdotes so well. It's the same. It's like sitting around a campfire and being told a ghost story. It's just the best thing in the world. That's why The Woman in Black is such a good show, because it tells you a story in a simple way from start to finish. It draws you slowly in, and so you're completely captured. And then by the time the shocks start happening, then you're stuck because you're right in there. That's what a good picture, a good audiobook should be like. You should be just drawn in and held completely by it. And I think it's about, from an acting point of view, it's about a level of concentration. It's about not getting in the way of the text, letting the story speak for itself. So it's an interesting skill. It's a real challenge as an actor to do it well, I think. But I love doing it.
Well, I can say that you sounded to me like I could really hear Watson in your reading. So Richard Earl better watch out.
Right. Yes, watch out. I'm next. Love Sherlock Holmes.
Well, listen, thank you so much for your time. We've really appreciated what you've had to offer. We're looking forward to many more years of seeing you come back.
Yes.
I said, you just search what you've done. It's a huge amount of stuff you've done with Big Finish. But I'm very excited by what's been happening with Harry and what's to come.
Thank you. Thank you both. It's been really lovely to talk to you. And I wish I could visit you in Australia again. Wonderful country. I just had the time of my life over there, and I would love to come back one day.
From Big Finish Productions, the worlds of Doctor Who, U.N.I.T, Nemesis, Agents of the Volprene.
Hello there.
Kate Stewart. When the arch opens again, we must be ready to take our chance.
A warning shot, Volprene! Surrender or the next one will take your head off!
The name's Kate Stewart, by the way.
Nice to meet you too, Kate! Goodbyes, dear, why so pessimistic?
This Director Prast, he's an alien.
A Dominator.
He's our little Quentin now. Quentin the Quark.
Ready to go, Osgood.
I am a Dominator. I shall report to the Director. Quarks, maintain molecular force.
Reverse engines! A Tudor warship coming right through the Thames barrier!
The modulator. They're using it. They tricked us. Oh, calm down.
It's pulling me through!
Jackie, let go of me!
11 deranged minds fueling one psychopath. Let's find out what they all want.
Pick up the pace.
So we have a plan. We go through the arch.
Yes, we just need to get past the Volprene.
This is pointless. You waste your own time, not mine. You'll talk eventually.
All right, on my command, concentrate your fire on that side of their squad. Ready? And fire!
Eyes left!
So that was a lovely chat we had there with Christopher Phillip.
We did. What a lovely guy. And as I mentioned, Big Finish, they find someone that's nice and lovely and they make them a companion. So, yeah, he's a great guy.
My great hope is that we can convince someone who may be sitting on the fence, a little bit sceptical of recasting, and give these stories a go, because they really are really good quality. And I can't recommend them highly enough, Philip.
Yeah, no, I agree. But mind you, I think Christopher Naylor is a good place, because who doesn't want to hear Tom stories? And so I think people will learn to cope with Tom, because it's worth just to get Tom as well.
But he's in U.N.I.T too, without Tom. So playing Harry. So that could be, it's an interesting role too in this, and they're great stories, the U.N.I.T Nemesis stories.
Yeah, they're brilliant.
So, our recommendations for this week. What I'd like to... No, I can't. I can't recommend it. You know why, Philip.
It's probably my turn, is it?
Probably. There's no probably about it. It is your turn. What would you like to recommend?
There we go. I am going to recommend a studio concept album. It's not really audio. Well, it's not audio. It's a musical, and it's an Australian musical that's about to be released. I've got tickets for it, about now, actually, probably, when this goes out. It's called the Dubbo Championship Wrestling. Is the name
what?
Dubbo Championship Wrestling is the name of the musical.
DCW.
Yes, the DCW. For people who are Australian, would actually know that the Dubbo Championship Wrestling, the DCW, is actually a big event held annually. Dubbo is a country town about
I love Dubbo.
I know, it's a great town. I love Dubbo. It's
I love it out there.
about 4 or 5 hours west of Sydney. Famous because it's got one of the world's best zoos called the Dubbo Plains Zoo.
Can I just correct you there? In my opinion, having been to various zoos all over the world, that is the best zoo in the world.
Yes. Well, can I say, of all the zoos I've been to, it's the best as well. It's huge. It's all open plains. The animals aren't behind in cages at all. They've all sort of, it depends what the animal is, but they've dug a lot of ground out. And so sort of the animals are down in open plains. It's so large, you hire a bike and you actually ride around the zoo. So there's a path you can take to make sure you pass all the animals. But the animals are pretty free to travel and have large open areas. It's really quite beautiful. But Dubbo is this lovely country town. And annually they have a wrestling competition, which some people take
Never knew about this.
Didn't you?
No.
Oh, okay.
And I like my wrestling too.
There you
I
go.
like my wrestling.
And it's often a place of controversy, and it's almost no rules wrestling, and it's quite well known and famous for it. But someone's written a musical about the Dubbo Wrestling Championship, and it's sort of a cross between Strictly Ballroom, and what else would I say? It's very ochre, very Australian. There's a bit of swearing in some of the songs, because there's a couple of songs which are very Australian and using as many Australian words as they can possibly put in, which includes a lot of swear words and other sayings.
Really?
Yeah, Australians. Some Australians do swear a lot. But you follow a female character as she competes throughout the different rounds, and the musical's all set in a wrestling ring. It's very amusing, great music, quite heavy. You'd probably like it actually, Dwayne. But yeah, it's a concept album for a show that's about to be released. Brand new Australian show, never been shown before. Dubbo Championship Wrestling, and
so it's out now.
You could get the album now. The show opens in a month's time from now, which will be probably when this comes out.
I think I might have to listen to this.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it. Yeah.
I'm definitely going to give this a listen.
Yeah.
I usually don't listen to your recommendations, Philip. Did I really say that? No, but this one I will. I will, for sure.
Good on you.
Because I love Dubbo and I love what you're saying about it.
You like
it's
wrestling?
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's a very warm-hearted, but yeah, as I said, you do have to put up with a bit of language. Don't put it on the car with your kids in the car.
Righto.
What about you, Dwayne? What are you going to recommend?
Well, we're recording this in the month of May. Not sure if you'll hear it in the month of May, but Big Finish is doing a special release every single month in the month of May. So there are quite a few releases that they've put on special that I haven't heard before. And one of them that I still haven't heard yet, but I'm going to recommend it because it sounds good, written by an author that we've had on the show and that I think is really funny, is Nev Fountain's The Mervyn Stone Mysteries. So they had that on special, and it is a release called The Axeman Cometh. So it looks like... is there a couple of episodes on there? Oh, no, there's one episode. It's starring John Banks and Nicola Bryant. And I'll have to listen to it because I haven't quite heard it yet, but I'm going to recommend it. I'll listen to it and I'll get back to you. If you giggled like that, I'm going to have to let you know what I think of it because you've heard this one?
Well, no, I haven't. But the title is a play on a very famous play called The Axeman Cometh.
Ah.
So The Axeman Cometh. So yes, I think Nev's going to. So is that on special at the moment?
It's on the May special, so you might want to pick it up too.
I'm going to go get it. I've been looking at them. I thought they were all books. There's audios as well as books in that series.
It's an audio. The Mervyn Stone is audio.
I'm going to go and get
Nicola
that tonight.
Bryant.
There you go.
All right, so that's our recommendations for this week. Hope you've enjoyed the show. I have.
Oh, so have I.
Thanks very much for listening. We'll catch you again soon. Toodles.
See you. Bye, everyone.
This has been the Sirens of Audio, episode 113, regarding Harry, with our guest Christopher Naylor and your hosts Philip Edney and Dwayne Bunny. Theme music by Joe Kramer. contact us or check out all our details at our website, sirensofaudio.com. You can also send us an email at sirensofaudio@gmail.com or drop us a comment on our socials or our YouTube channel. We love interacting with you. Thanks for listening, audiophiles. We'll catch you next time. G'day, audiophiles. This is the Sirens of Audio, the show that explores the universe of Doctor Who and the audio medium. And I'm Dwayne.
And I'm Philip. G'day, Dwayne.
And we're starting... Sorry.
What are we doing? Why are you interrupting me?
Sorry. I'm starting my sentences with "and."
Yeah, it's okay.
Let's do that again, Philip. I don't like that. All right.
No, good.